Hello, welcome to the Quick Enroll training video. In this video, I will be explaining the Quick Enroll page in PeopleSoft. The Quick Enroll page is used by administrators to perform enrollment transactions such as enroll, drop, normal maintenance, or swap. Navigation to the Quick Enroll page is Records and Enrollment, Enroll Students, Quick Enroll. Some important Quick Enroll concepts include: first, the four actions that are most frequently used are enroll, drop, swap, and normal maintenance. Enroll is used to enroll a student in a class. Drop is used to drop a student from a class. Swap is used when a student wants to potentially drop a class, but is not sure that he or she is going to get into the replacement class. And normal maintenance is used when changing the number of credits for which a student is taking a variable credit class, changing an instructor of a class where there are multiple instructor options, and a few other situations. A student must be term activated in the term for which you are going to use Quick Enroll to perform an enrollment transaction. For most, the ability to perform functions on the Quick Enroll page begins at 12:01 a.m. on the first day of a term's enrollment period and ends at 11:59 p.m. on the last day of a term's add drop period. Enrollment and add drop dates that make up these periods can be found on the university academic calendar at www.registrar.pitt.edu/calendars.html. A student's enrollment appointment date and time determines when you can enroll that student via the Quick Enroll page. Enrollment appointments are given to non-veteran students only in the fall and spring terms, and in the fall, spring, and summer terms for veteran students. You will not be able to enroll a student in a class prior to the student's enrollment appointment beginning. Please do not ever check all the override checkboxes in order to get a student into a class. Doing this really puts you, as the person who performed the enrollment transaction, in a bad situation. This also does a real disservice to the student because in most cases, the student ends up doing poorly in the class because he or she was not prepared for it or is dropped out of the class, which can affect a student's full-time, part-time status. This can of course affect the amount of financial aid the student is eligible to receive. It is really important to learn when to use an override and when to use a permission number. When a class is full or closed, when the student does not meet the requisites for a class, when there is department or instructor consent required for a class, and when the career of the class is outside the career of the student, are all situations where a student should acquire a permission number from the instructor or department offering the class. That permission number can then be used in the permission text box on the Quick Enroll page to enroll a student in a class. The class links, unit load, and time conflict overrides are really the only overrides that should be used when attempting to enroll a student in a class. All other errors should be resolved via a permission number. Let's go check out the page. Navigate to the Quick Enroll page by clicking on Records and Enrollment, Enroll Students, Quick Enroll a Student. The landing tab for the Quick Enroll page is the Add a New Value tab. This tab is used to perform a new transaction on a student's enrollment record. You can search historical enrollment transactions by clicking on the Find an Existing Value tab, entering the appropriate information, and then clicking the Search button. Searching historical transactions is fairly standard across all PeopleSoft pages, so I'm not going to spend much time on this function in this video. Let's go back to the Add a New Value tab. Now that we're back on a tab where a new enrollment transaction is started, you can enter the ID by either typing it directly into the ID text box or by clicking on the magnifying glass to search for a student. I know the ID of the student that I would like to use as an example, so I'm going to enter it directly into the ID text box. Next, enter the academic career of the student. Leave UPitt in the academic institution text box, and then enter the term for which you will be performing the transaction. If you do not know the term code, you can click on the magnifying glass to search for the appropriate term. An important note is that a student must be term activated in the term for which you are going to use Quick Enroll to perform an enrollment transaction. If you get an error when trying to type in the term, a good way to find out if a student has been term activated for a term is by using this magnifying glass. Only the terms in which a student is term activated will display here after clicking the Lookup button. Then click the Add button. As you can see, the Quick Enroll page has several tabs. There is the Class Enrollment tab, Units and Grade tab, Other Class Info tab, General Overrides tab, and the Class Overrides tab. Each of these tabs provides an opportunity to add details to the transaction and are dependent on the action that is chosen. The four actions that are used by the great majority of users are enroll, drop, swap, and normal maintenance. Depending on your assigned PeopleSoft security, there may be several actions that display in this drop-down to which you will not have access. Let's take a look at the Enroll action first. So choose Enroll from the drop-down and then enter the class number based on what the student provides and then click the Submit button. Based on this message, the transaction was successful. You can click on the study list link to view the class on the student schedule. If you want to enroll a student in another class, you don't have to leave the page. Instead, just click the plus button, choose an action of Enroll, and then enter the class number for which you would like to enroll the student. Once you've entered a class number, click on Submit. Rather than a success, this time we get an error. To learn the details of an error, just click on the error hyperlink. As you can see, this error informs us that multiple enrollments are not allowed for a course. Occasionally, this situation occurs when a student is enrolling in different sections of the same course in different sessions within the same term. This is an error that you can override. In order to override this error, click on the Class Overrides tab and then check the Class Links checkbox. This will allow PeopleSoft to look at your request as two separate classes, not two of the same class. Now we submit the request again by clicking the Submit button. And this time we get a message. An important note is that when you see success or message in this area of the page, the transaction has completed successfully. If you see errors in this area of the page, the transaction has not completed successfully. If you want to view the details of the message, just click the message hyperlink. This message informs you that the class has previously been taken, which is okay in some class cases. After each transaction, you can verify the transaction completed by clicking on the study list hyperlink. As you can see, this student is now enrolled in a 6-week 1 yoga class, as well as enrolled in a 6-week 2 yoga class. Now let's add another class to this student's schedule. You can do this by clicking on the plus button. Make sure the Enroll action is chosen. Enter the class number of 10105 into the class number box, and then click Submit. Another error was received. To learn details of this error, just click on the errors hyperlink. This error informs us that this student does not meet the requisites for this class. At this point, the student must select a different class or request permission from the department offering the class or the dean's office. If the department offering the class or dean's office grants permission to enroll in a class, the student will be given a permission number, which can then be used on this page to override the requisite restriction. Students can only be granted permission numbers to enroll in classes that are closed, where a student does not meet the class requisites, where a class requires department consent, or where a class career is outside the student's career. Once a student has a permission number, he or she can either enter it when enrolling in this class through the PeopleSoft student self-service enrollment process, or provide you with a permission number. If the student provides you with the permission number, you can use it to enroll the student in the class on this page by clicking the Other Class Info tab and entering the permission number into the permission number text box. The permission number that I just entered is one that I generated earlier today in preparation for this transaction. It is important to know that a permission number can only be used once per class. If you use a permission number to enroll a student in a class and then drop that student from that class, the student would need a new permission number if he or she wanted to re-enroll in the same class. Once you've entered the permission number, click the Submit button. And as you can see, we got another error. This error tells us that a required related class must also be selected. Required related classes, in most cases, are referred to as labs or recitations. So let's return to the Quick Enroll page and I'll show you where to enter a related class. A related class is entered into the Related One text box. You can enter the class number of the related class if you know it, or you can click on the magnifying glass to view which related classes are available. There is only one related class available for this section of Math 240, which is a recitation with a class number of 10444. If there are multiple related classes for a class, there will be multiple rows on this page. You choose a related class that the student wants by clicking the related class number, then submit the enrollment request again by clicking the Submit button. And this time the transaction was successful. Again, you can verify that the transaction was successful by viewing the student study list. We can see that this student is enrolled in the lecture with a class number of 10105, as well as enrolled in a recitation with a class number of 10444. Now let's enroll this student in a history class. Start by clicking the plus button, choosing an action of enroll, enter the class number, and then clicking the submit button. And this transaction was successful. As you can see, this student is now enrolled in a history 1901 class, but for only 1 credit. You should always keep an eye on the number of credits for a class in which a student is enrolling. Very few classes are offered for only 1 credit, so this makes me think that this class is a variable credit class. You can verify this by clicking on the subject catalog number hyperlink, and just as I suspected, this is a variable credit class. Let's say that this student recognized that the number of credits is not correct and asks you to enroll her in 3 credits for this class. Rather than dropping the class and then re-enrolling the student in the class, we're going to perform a normal maintenance, which can be used to update an existing enrollment record. To perform a normal maintenance, first add a new row and then choose an action of normal maintenance. Because you are updating an existing enrollment record, click on the magnifying glass to choose the class that you would like to update. In this case, I would like to update History 1901, so I click the checkbox next to this class. Then click the Units and Grades tab and change the units taken value from 1 to 3. Once you've updated this value, click the Submit button. And as you can see, the transaction was successful. Now let's verify this update on the student study list. As you can see, the number of units is now 3, where it was 1 before. By performing a normal maintenance rather than a drop and enroll, the student does not give up his or her seat in the class, which is always important. Another action on the Quick Enroll page is a drop. Dropping a student from a class is very straightforward, so we won't spend much time on it. To drop a student from a class, click on the plus button, choose an action of drop, click the magnifying glass to choose the class from the student schedule that you would like to drop, and then click the Submit button. As you can see, this drop transaction was successful. Again, you can verify this by clicking on the study list hyperlink and seeing that the History 1901 class is no longer on this student schedule. An important note about dropping classes is that prior to the first day of a given term, a drop will be deleted from a student's schedule. After the first day of a term, a drop will remain on a student's schedule, but will display with a status of dropped. Because I dropped this class for the summer term, and the summer term has not started yet, the class was deleted from the student's schedule. The last action that I'm going to cover is the swap. A swap should be used when a student wants to potentially drop a class but is not sure that he or she is going to get into a replacement class. A swap will only drop a class if you successfully enroll in a different class. To swap classes for a student, click on the plus button, choose an action of swap this time, and then enter the class number of which the student would like to potentially drop in the class number text box. In this case, I'm going to drop one of the yoga classes, so I'll just pick it from the student schedule. Then enter the class number of which the student would like to enroll in the Change To text box. I'm going to use the class search page to find a class, which is always an option on Quick Enroll for actions of add or swap. Once you've chosen a class, click the Submit button. And we get an error. Looks like the seats for this class are reserved for a specific group of which this student is not included. If we click on the class hyperlink and look at the class availability section, we see that the available seats is set to 10 and all 10 are restricted. In the enrollment restrictions area, you can see that those restricted seats are for College of General Studies students. This student is not a College of General Studies student, so she does not meet the enrollment restriction. At this point, the student could acquire a permission number from the College of General Studies and then provide it to you to be used to successfully complete the transaction. But in this case, I'm going to show you that the student is still enrolled in the yoga class to emphasize the most important function of a swap. Because the transaction was not successful, the yoga class was not dropped. Swap is really useful in that it gives you an opportunity to attempt to enroll a student in a class without first dropping that student from another class. I'm going to just delete that transaction now and add a new Enroll action row to avoid any confusion about what is next in the video. There are several overrides that can be used as a way to successfully complete an Enroll action. The first of those is the unit load. This override should be used to enroll a student in more credits than permitted in one term according to that student's academic program. For example, if an undergraduate student wants to enroll in a class that brought that student's total enrolled credits above 18, the unit load override checkbox would need to be checked. As an FYI, exceeding the total units for a term requires a signature from a dean's office, and in most cases will increase a student's tuition bill, so please be sure that this is something that you want to do before doing it. The next override that can be used is a time conflict override. This override should be used when a student wants to enroll in a class where the times overlap. Most schools also require dean's office approval to enroll a student in classes where the times overlap, so make sure you clear this with your dean's office before performing this override on a student's record. A time conflict, unit load, and class links override, which I used earlier in a transaction, are really the only overrides that should be used when attempting to enroll a student in a class. All other errors should be resolved via a class permission number. When a class is full or closed, when the student does not meet the requisites for a class, when there is department or instructor consent required for a class, and when the career of the class is outside the career of the student, are all situations where a student should acquire a permission number from the instructor or department offering the class. As I showed you earlier, that permission number can then be used in the permission text box. If you have any questions or would like to schedule additional training, please contact the Enrollment Services area in the University Registrar's Office at 412-624-7649 or registration@registrar.pitt.edu.